Hello everyone, I'd want to describe my story. I met my wife Jessica online, and we went on our first date soon after I moved to Denver, Colorado. Her decision to postpone our first date was made up for by her giving me a small present during our first meeting, which included a notebook and chocolates. We dated for 6 months before deciding to be married. At the time I was 32 and now I'm 35. And she was 31 then and now she's 34, and we were still going strong, but my wife came from a large family. So she had a habit of making lots of friends and hosting large gatherings for friends and family. Every month, someone from her family came to visit and stayed with us for a few days. I wasn't used to seeing people or having people stay in my house for days, but I was adapting for her. She worked from home, so taking care of guests was easy for her, but it was difficult for me to do so after arriving home from work. She had no sense of privacy because she would wear short clothes, nightie, and bras even in front of guests. I told her she was gaining weight and these dresses were too short for her body, but she said she only wore them in front of family and friends. And her list of guests included her male friends, colleagues, and cousins, demonstrating that she had no sense of privacy. Jeremy, an old acquaintance of hers, once visited our city in hunt of jobs and spent a full month living with us. Jeremy and my wife were so close that he would massage her feet and she massaged his back, which I considered odd. You might ask me why I was putting up with this, but I didn't. Instead, I raised a fuss. My wife Jessica and I got into a dispute one day when Jeremy went to give an interview. I told her I didn't appreciate this frankness, but she claimed she didn't see anything wrong with that and that friends were supposed to be frank and I was being shallow. Since we had both had career struggles, we could relate to Jeremy's situation and wanted to assist him in obtaining employment, so we ended our argument prior to Jeremy's arrival. We never argued in front of others, although we never wanted him to pay. Jeremy assisted us with household tasks and even helped with shopping. Jeremy and I also frequently played games on the PlayStation 5 together, and I was enjoying having him around, but my wife had no boundaries. She would hug him in front of me, which made me feel uneasy. Anyhow, Jeremy moved out of our home after getting a job, and I strongly enforced the rule that I wouldn't let guests stay all the time. My wife raised a fuss, but I had had enough and was adamant about my decision. Additionally, we had to make house payments, so we couldn't afford to keep anyone else in our home since we were already living on rent, however, and hadn't paid the advance in full. We were already in a difficult financial situation. However, I was making far more money than my wife, who was only interested in having fun with her friends and family and not taking her profession seriously. When Jimmy left our home, Jessica made an effort to woo me back. She prepared delicious meals, dressed provocatively, and treated me to a night of pleasure. We were content with our married life, but one day when I got back from the office, Jessica was sobbing and whining about how she had no friends and was bored at home. I advised her to change jobs and obtain an office job, but she refused to give up her remote position. She persuaded me to plan a quick trip to Europe, which I reluctantly agreed to do. Jessica and I organized everything for our trip, and I was excited because I planned to do job interviews there. During our trip, I visited a few companies and gave interviews in Europe. And we had a good time. I'm the type of person that prefers to spend money on travel rather than pointless parties, so I was pleased with our trip. Jessica claimed to be suffering from post-travel depression when we got back. I had never heard of it, but I knew she only wanted to invite her friends. She never felt comfortable with only the two of us around. She was hosting a party for her friends on the weekends. I was delighted to receive a job offer from a German company, that was paying me well. I wanted to celebrate with Jessica, but she was busy preparing for her party when I went to tell her. It dampened my mood, so I made the decision to tell her about my job after the party. I informed her that I wouldn't be joining her party and that instead, would be going to my friend's house. However, since I was pleased with my job offer, I made the last-minute decision to attend the party. She ordered vodka, wine, alcohol, and a variety of other drinks for her party that night, where she enjoyed herself with a large group of friends while dancing and laughing. Jeremy, who was also present with his girlfriend and who warmly greeted me, was the only person at the party I recognized. Everyone else was a complete stranger. I simply wanted to leave the party, but I thought we were moving to Germany. So I tried to act well since this was probably our last party with Jessica's friend. Jessica was so drunk that she failed to notice me, or, if she did, was too wasted to acknowledge me. I was taking my wife's friend to the guest room bathroom since he had vodka all over his coat and shirt. I requested him to come with me, and when we got to the guest room, I was astonished to see my wife Jessica on the bed with some guy. I didn't know him, but he was at the party. And I was horrified to see them engaged in the act. They were also surprised to see me, but because they were high, they didn't react much. Jeremy walked into the guest room, and when Jeremy entered the guest room, he was shocked to see Jessica with this random man. When I asked Jeremy who this man was, he had no idea either. When Jessica was drunk, I picked up her phone off the floor and used her fingerprints to open it, and I left my house. I opened her phone and checked her social media and WhatsApp. And when I saw her romantic conversation with that person, I was horrified. I also checked her social media and saw that Jessica was chatting with several different men, and one of those men was the one in our guest room. Her chat messages were nasty. She had sent various guys her exposing photos and videos, and since she knew I wouldn't be at the party, she even had the guts to invite one of the guys over to our house. I made the quick decision to go back to my house while Jessica was still drunk. I packed up my belongings and money, and left the building. I moved my stuff to a friend's house and called a lawyer right away because I still had time to get rid of my cheap wife before I left for Germany. My wife tried to contact me the next day, but I totally ghosted her, didn't return her calls, and blocked her on social media. My divorce had been finalized thanks to my efforts and the assistance of lawyers. So I went to my home when I learned Jessica wasn't going to be there. I placed the divorce papers on our kitchen table, and then left, after witnessing my wife's nasty behavior. I didn't want to see her face. She was the kind of woman that was constantly bored and craved entertainment in her life, but I had no idea that she would go to such extremes for enjoyment and fun. When I finally saw her face, I ghosted her completely. Update: I relocated to Germany for my job and haven't spoken to my ex-wife since I left America. I don't want to interact with this irresponsible, unfaithful woman when she puts her partner and her marriage below everything else. My friend informed me that Jessica contacted him and was crying when he told her, "I have moved to Germany." She had to leave the house and pay the whole advance because she couldn't afford to pay the rent for our apartment on her own, so she relocated to a different city to be with her sister because she couldn't afford to live alone. Jimmy and her other friends didn't assist her because they all have partners and couldn't keep her with them in this situation. My wife was the only cheap woman who valued her friendships and fun more than her marriage and partner. However, she wasn't treated as important by her friends. Because she doesn't know my new phone number, she continues to email, but I don't want this dishonest woman back in my life, so I broke off any contact with her. Fortunately, since we don't have kids, it was easy to ghost her. I'm merely sharing this story with you in the hopes that you can draw a lesson from it as well. It is pointless to waste life with people whose only interests are parties and dishonesty and who are not ashamed to cheat on you. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my story. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and in order to receive new video updates, click the bell button. Please help us expand this channel. Good day, wonderful people.